This week we're going to cover two things. The 10 best things about the Nissan Pathfinder, and also we're going to clear up a few little things that people don't know about the terms that people use for modern car technology. When we did the first review at the launch, people said that they loved the look of the car, but there are a few things that they thought were missing. For example, a turbocharged 4-cylinder option or a hybrid. Well, if you want that, you can go to Toyota's Kluger, which is about, on this top model at least, $6,000 cheaper drive away. I was on the public site this morning and there was about $6,000 difference. Nathan, you said you liked the looks. You said this looked a little bit like a Land Rover. And I think you're right. There is more than a touch of Land Rover about this, especially around the back. Under the back floor is this natty little hole, and you can put your groceries in there so your bits and bobs don't bang together. And there's even a place for your jack. Personally, I don't like my gin banging against my bourbon. The back door is absolutely enormous. That's another thing I like. They open nice and wide. They've got flaps for sunshade, and have a look at this. The rear has individual captain seats with individual armrests, gorgeous upholstery, and an electric flick forward button to give you access to the third row when it's folded up. You'll notice, of course, that I've got it folded. The rear also gets some heated seats, USBs, and another climate zone. I love the electric gear selector. That's another favourite thing. And I love wireless CarPlay. Possibly my top favourite thing. I don't think any car should be without it. And the fact that BMW is actually charging you rent for it is absolutely preposterous. Just while we're on the subject, someone did make a comment that this is really a bit too big for tight suburban streets. This is a tight suburban street. That's not too big. Maybe you should just learn how to drive, you feckless moron. But I digress. It is so quiet. And on the highway, it was damn near silent. I love the sunroof. I don't open sunroofs, but I just like a little bit of extra light. I can't see any point in having a sunroof open in Australia and getting third-degree burns. The next thing is, I love this 9-speed automatic, and I love the 3.5 litre engine. And Nissan said that there's no plans, despite the fact that they've got that great e-power, e-drive, iDrive, 4-drive system. In the smaller cars, this is an American designed and built car, and it's just, they would prefer a 6-cylinder. Some of the other punters said that this didn't stack up price-wise against cars like the Land Rover, for example. Well, it is considerably cheaper than a Land Rover and far more reliable. Love Land Rovers though I do. Nathan has been prolific and wanted to know the difference between lane departure warning, and lane centering. Up behind this piece of plastic is a camera that points forward. And modern technology is LiDAR, cameras, radar, sonar, whatever. And it looks forward, looks at the lines for any obstacles. And it's also used as part of the emergency braking system. Some cars even have it in reverse, which is very clever. Lane centering is the same system, and that uses the same sensors to keep you centered within the lane. And you don't have to have that switched on. It's also called auto steering and a whole lot of other things. There are a couple of things that you should be aware of. One, most of them don't like corners and none of them like sharp corners. There is currently no car on the market that has autonomous driving. Forget all those stupid Tesla videos you've seen. It's absolute rubbish, and what they're doing is illegal. There's nowhere in the world where autonomous driving is legal. Nowhere. And I've seen several videos, including a couple having sex in the back seat with no one in the front seats in a Tesla. That's just asking for trouble, in more ways than one. Now, the lane departure can also have steering intervention. You'll get a stick shaker, so it shakes the steering wheel like an airplane to warn of a stall. This warns of lane departure. This has also got a really clever thing that watches the driver for a lack of attention to see just exactly where the driver's eyes are. Emergency braking. That's another term that is not much understood, and it's because there are so many versions of it. Earlier versions, it was just detecting traffic in front of you. That's it, and it would try and stop you. Some it didn't work below certain speeds, some it doesn't work over certain speeds. But some systems now will detect cars coming at intersections, bicycles, people, small animals. It will detect all sorts of things, and it will try and pull you up or try and mitigate an accident. And that's the main point I want to make, and that is there's no substitute for good driving. Now, back to the Nissan. After driving this around for a week, I absolutely love this car. I loved it at the launch. The top of the line is absolutely beautiful. It's got all-wheel drive and all the works and jerks. It's got drive modes down here, including some off-road modes and a tow mode, which we did use at launch. One of the other points that was made about the hybrid situation was fuel consumption. And yes, this is a heavy car. It's got a relatively large-ish engine, and although the 9-speed automatic tries to change up as quickly as possible in normal mode, the fuel consumption around town is still pretty atrocious. Over some highway driving that I've done on this, a little bit of highway, a little bit of city, I'm sitting at around 10.1 litres per 100 kilometres. But on the highway yesterday, we got down as low as 7.1. When you go through the history, you can look at what your best fuel consumption was. 7.1 is pretty good for a girl this big. The other thing I like about it is this Bose sound system is very good. It's not the best that I've ever had, but it is very good. And the other thing is there are brilliant amounts of storage. There's some under here in the console. There's a little bin above the glove box. The thing in the back that I told you about already, it is just amazing. And I think it's the Americanness of this car that I actually like. That's it trying to tell me that it thinks that I'm going to change lanes onto somebody. That's the only downside to blind spot monitor. The last thing I want to briefly touch on is the safety systems and drive raids. There was a comment made recently that the drive raids were making drivers lazy. I don't think that's so. I don't think they're making them lazy at all. And then it was making drivers worse. And I don't think that that's the case either. I want you to consider a few statistics. 1, since I got my license, shortly after Captain Cook discovered Australia, well, not that it was lost, there were people here, there are probably 2 or 3 times the number of cars on the road that there were when I got my license. And yet, there are fewer deaths and injuries. And that is all down to A, the way the cars are engineered and built, and B, the fact that there are safety systems in cars now that allow the user to drive normally, but also to drive more safely. This car looks all the way around its perimeter, and it's looking out for things that are coming from the front, from the side, from the back, and even if you're parked, it'll warn you not to open the doors if it senses oncoming traffic. And on this car at least, I don't even mind the V-Power grille. That's all this week from Nissan's Pathfinder. I hope you found the extra bit of information valuable. Some people do still get these things confused, the terms for cars confused. As always, hit like, leave a comment, and just there to subscribe.